Ralph Fredericks will close our evening. And then I will ask all the storytellers and my wonderful interns to come up and join us on the stage for a thank you and a goodbye. I think I had been in Columbus about a month when I heard Ralph Fredericks tell a story at the wonderful Wild Goose Creative. And I didn't know how or when. I hadn't thought about Six and City Columbus yet or what I was going to do with my sort of storytelling life here in Columbus. But I kind of knew I'd have to do one of these nights to make sure he got on a stage. This process of working with storytellers, they really work hard. I mean, you can just tell, right? And I really get to know them. And for me, that's such a fun part of the job, really. And, Ralph, I've seen, in the creative community over the last year here and there, and we really like each other. But he said something to me at our last call. He said, Larry, today we are acquaintances. After May 19th, we will be friends. To close our evening, Ralph Fredericks.
So, anybody got some time to hear an old man's tale? On Sunday, December 16th, 1962 at 8:59 p.m., I had just finished shaking the silver foil dome of Jiffy Pop that I was going to share with my family when we watched the Ed Sullivan Show. It was a phenomenal lineup. Liberace played Moon River, and there were 4 Italian gymnasts on trampolines, and there was a ventriloquist. And then after the commercial break, this exotic creature walked down a flight of stairs. She was slightly cross-eyed, and she had a weird, uneven haircut, and she was wearing a sailor dress, and she had a nose like a toucan. But when she opened her mouth and sang, that voice pierced my little, ashamed, frightened 9-year-old heart. And I knew that no matter what I had to do, I wanted to live where Barbra Streisand lived. I looked around our little messy tract house, and I said, I'm going to bide my time. And when I got out of college, clutching my BFA in acting, I said, Mama and Daddy, I ain't going to come back to Ohio unless I'm a star. So I took all the money I'd made working at a Red Lobster, and I moved to New York City. Well, New York City was so frantic, you don't really keep up with how fast the time is going. And I realized one day that it had been 10 years, and I had read a lot more dinner specials in restaurants than I ever had Noel Coward lines. And then one day I saw this thing called Nathan Lane, and I knew that no matter anything I could do, he was going to do better, and I had better find another gig. Well, I fell in love with a nice man and moved to Washington, D.C., and I surveyed the landscape, and I realized pretty soon that there are 2 ways to get people to respect and reward you. Fuck them or feed them. And I did not have the energy to do the former, but my God, I could do the second. I got a job in this fancy little hotel. English hotel is a Metra Diva. And the dining room was my stage, and the podium was my set, and my tux was my tux. And my script was, darling, only 3 women in the world can wear that silly Chanel, and I haven't met the other 2. Senator, your new secretary's waiting at the table. Her name is Tammy. Maya Angelou, nobody can work a sable cape like you can, dear, and I loved your new book. I started getting press, and I started being on TV shows, and it was fun. And then the Washington, D.C., the Washington Post said, in a city of Metra Divas, there's only one Metra Diva. And it stuck. And I was a brand. That brand allowed me to finally put that little tract house out of my mind when, after years of hard work, I moved into a top-floor co-op apartment with high ceilings and wood floors and a fireplace and 2 incredible storage units and a view of the National Cathedral. Honey, I thought I was something. And then I coughed. My cancer was so far advanced that they weren't even sure if it was going to be worth attempting chemotherapy, but we gave it a try. First thing I had to do, though, was lose my podium, the work that I loved, and then my car, and then the furniture, and my paintings. And as tight as I clung, I just couldn't hold on to my home. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then my sister, who I had not seen in years, who lived in the country in a kind of religious-y kind of neighborhood, called and said, "Ralph, come home." Well, I shipped some clothes ahead, and I flew there, and when they were wheeling me off the plane, I was clutching all of my reviews and magazine articles as if they could keep me grounded and then I wouldn't disappear. And I said, Janet, I can't be home in Ohio. I'm not a star. And she said, well, you are to me. Now let's save your sorry ass. My sister and brother-in-law bought this luxury RV and put me in there, and that was going to be home base. Hear ye, step right up, everybody, see the queen in a can. Cancer is not really worth much discussion, frankly. It's mostly about the din. It's the sound of bedpans clanking and walkers moving and your own heart when you're in the drowning of a coma and you can hear the machines breathing for you. The nursing homes were the worst. There was always some fat bitch trying to steal my pudding. But I came home from the last nursing home and hit the bottle. And one night, my sister asked, they were going to be out of town. She said, would you feed the chickens? Would I feed the chickens? And I said, yes. And the next morning in my can, I woke up and I was so hungover. Oh, God, I wanted to die. And I had a little dog at that point, and she had to go out and pee. So I reached in the back of the closet, and I just grabbed a pair of shoes and put them on my feet. And I went outside to the chicken coop, and I fell flat on my ass in the muck and the mire. And finally, for the first time, I let myself cry about everything I'd lost. My dog started to lick my hand, and I looked down, and on my feet was a pair of $500 square-toed Prada Loafers that I had once been on the wait list for at Neiman's, and if I didn't get them, I was going to die. The sheer absurdity of it made me laugh, and at that moment, I knew I was going to live. The Metra Diva is dismissed. Now Ralph, title tune, has to find a place to live. I took the first apartment I saw in Columbus. They would let me have my dog, but it did have high ceilings and wood floors and a fireplace and 2 storage units, and a phenomenal view of the East Side methadone clinic. But it was mine. It was mine. Now, I didn't have a pot to piss in. Everything had been gone. And so I figured I'd just buy some chairs and things at the Goodwill, but my wonderful ex-husband, a very Tony interior designer, loaded up a truck, and he brought furniture and rugs and dishes and everything, and drapes and paintings, beautiful paintings, and a box of antique English silver. He said, I thought you should have something nice for your Marie Callender's pot pies. That night, when he drove away, I looked around and I said, okay, I am a 58-year-old man. I have a $12,000 sofa, a 10-pound poodle, and a $500 a month apartment, and I'm in a town where I don't know a soul. Shit. That night I went to the Kroger's, and it was like the night of the living dead. There were all these people in their pajamas, wheeling around on carts, drinking Mountain Dew. The only thing worse than the pajamas were the perms. How long was I in that fucking coma? I went home and I finally ventured out. And I went to this farmer's market where I met this enchanting girl named Morgan. And while we were talking about herbs, she said, would you like to come to a party? Well, I hadn't been to a party in forever, so I said, sure. So I splurged on a bottle of very good Puy Fusé, and I was dressed head to toe in Ralph Lauren linen when I arrived, and someone put a red Solo cup in my hand, and I realized that after doing hello, 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 I love your De La Renta, I had the perfect limber wrist for throwing a beanbag through a hole in a stick. My friend Jennifer was opening a restaurant here in town, and she asked if I'd help out a couple of nights a week to sort of train the staff, and I said, sure. And it was there that I met this chic, beautiful, but very, very smart woman named Vicki Bowen Hughes. When she told me about the mission of Dress for Success, I said, it's so funny. I spent 30 years telling rich women that they were absolutely fabulous, and they hear it 4 times a day. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just do it once for women who've hit a bump in the road? And she said, well, let's do it. But I'm a man. She said, I can see that, but let's do it. Do you want to Google me? She said, let's do it. Let's do it. Those 3 words got me out of my bed and out of my head and gave me a place to go. And I joined the sisterhood, the sorority of volunteers at Dress for Success. And then I hooked up with this fabulous woman named Molly, magnificent Molly. And she and I became a team. And for every Thursday for 2 years, we were the Clinton and Stacy of 5th and High. We scarfed them and belted them and started with the shoes. But when I looked at those women who'd lost so much, but they had this optimism, it knocked me off my pity pot and kicked a whole lot of that snobbery right out from under me. But what about the arts? What about the arts? Who the fuck can afford the arts? And then one day I went to the Short North Stage and I saw Sunday in the Park with George. And it was spectacular. And it was $38. I could afford $38. I think I could live here. I wanted to be around my own kind. So it was time to venture out to the gay bar. So I decided to go to one that had a vaguely military theme called AWOL. Well, I got to the door, and all of a sudden, I remembered that I hadn't had a trainer or a nutritionist, that cocktails and chemo had done this to me, And I remembered my own face sipping a $17 martini in DuPont Circle and smirking at the boys that just couldn't get it together. But when I opened that door, there were 3 huge queens in flannel shirts drinking beer, and they were not fat-shamed and hiding in the corner. Honey, they were in the middle of that bar. And I said, girl, I know what I am. I'm a bear. And I turned to the drag queen, looking at my shoulder, and I said, girl, I could live here. One day there was a line on High Street, and I got in, and I thought it was for a place called Jenny's. Jenny's. So I went in, and all the flavors were like, they sounded like they came out of the ingredients in the appetizer baskets on Chopped. You know, goat cheese, rutabaga, gummy bear swirl, and I'll have the salty caramel, please, and yum. Cheryl Hooker invited me to go to the Harmony Project. And I went, oh, Lord, please. I hate up with fucking people. I hate it. I hate these things. But I'll be nice. And I went. And out walked this force of nature named David Brown. And I saw him take that disparate group of all kinds of people and turn them into a choir. And when they began to sing, I am not a prayer, but I just one time said, thank you for giving me a second chance. I like it here. I wanted to ply my craft. I missed it. I did. I missed the hello darlings and the bustle of a restaurant. But I just was beyond working any place full time. So my friend Jennifer saw this ad for looking for a Metra Diva at this little country club out in the burbs. So we sort of toned down my resume and and they hired me. And at first, I think people were a little scant. So who is this old man standing here? But when I was able to say, I love Lily Pulitzer, I was in. But the best part about being there, it was no longer $100 handshakes, which was what I was used to, and gifts of Burberry ties. It was mostly children. I'd always lived in big cities. I never was around kids. Well, they're actually kind of wonderful. And there are lots of them. And they like me, and I like them, and they think I'm Santa Claus's brother, I think. Or Burl Ives. And they bring me little pictures and say, Mr. Ralph, this is for you. It's a butterfly. Now, let's face it, ladies. Any place in the world where you can make a 5-year-old giggle is home. Well, I don't even know if Hamilton will come here in my lifetime. And sorry, Katzingers, but I never did find a decent pastrami sandwich. But Columbus, you were the nest for my rising phoenix. But, there's always a but. But, wait a minute. Remember, I have a BFA in acting. As God is my witness. As God is my witness. If I have to lie, cheat, steal, or kill, as God is my witness, I will never play cornhole again.